So about this point in the class, when I'm seeing how close we are, I start to think, stupid checklist, why you no complete? Well, it's because these particular assembly instructions are special and they do not show up in normal code. You have to go out of your way to create them. And so I'm just going to tell you what they are. Starting with fence. Fence is a memory fence, and the fence instruction is used to order device I/O and memory accesses as viewed by other RISC-V hearts and external devices or coprocessors. Another way of putting it is that a fence is going to be put into the code to make sure that everything before the fence in code has to have completed any of its device I/O or memory accesses, whether it's read or write. You have to complete that stuff before you pass the fence, and only then are you allowed to proceed. And that makes sure that all the other hardware threads or hearts are able to see stuff equally. Like they're not going to see different things depending on which one sees some read or write having occurred first. Now there is a more complicated form of fence that you can give in the assembly, but we're just going to say you just use a fence instruction and it'll do what you want in that it places a fence on all device I/O and all memory accesses. So in the future we may cover that in another class where we talk about the different components, but that's definitely not needed in this class. And as a reminder from early on in the class, we talked about a heart-to-heart chat. We said a heart is a hardware thread, meaning that if you have a core, you can actually have multiple independent hardware threads that are going to basically have their own registers, and they're going to look like they're independent cores from the perspective of software that's trying to do multi-threading. So the next instruction is eBreak for environment break. And there's both an eBreak and a compressed eBreak, and this is how you do software breakpoints. So behind the scenes, when you set a software breakpoint in something like GDB, it's going to actually take the location that you specify the breakpoint should occur. If it was a 4-byte instruction, it is going to remove the instruction and insert an eBreak instruction. If it was a 2-byte compressed instruction, it's going to insert a compressed eBreak instead. As the code is running along, eventually it will hit the eBreak. That will fire off. The operating system will say like, hey, is there a debugger attached right now? If so, then they'll hand control to the debugger. And the debugger will then, stop and show you the context, the registers, whatever you want it to see, and the debugger will show you that. Now, in general, debuggers will always hide the fact that they actually just removed the assembly instruction and installed a eBreak or compressed eBreak. So if you were to just, do from within the debugger a read memory of the address where you put a software breakpoint, it's going to show you the original instruction because that's what most people want to see. But behind the scenes, it actually got replaced, and when you continue the code execution, they're just going to execute the original instruction and make sure that they don't immediately break again, and then continue on with the code execution. So basically, execute the real instruction, replace the breakpoint back in the location where you want the breakpoint, unless you've specifically said, break once or, just removed it as a temporary breakpoint. So basically execute, put the break back in, and continue on. But if you want to see that this sort of subterfuge is occurring because of the debugger, then I will give you a lab where you can go ahead and write a program that's going to actually read its own memory to be able to detect when eBreaks or CE breaks have been inserted. Okay, next and final instruction for RV32i, eCall environment call. This calls from a lower privileged execution environment to a higher privileged one. So it could be calling from user space to kernel space or kernel space to hypervisor. It could also be used within the context of firmware. Originally, this instruction was called scall, as in system call, but then they decided, well, it's more generic to call it environment call because it may not be just used for something like an operating system call. It could be used for like a hyper call. So this will be appropriate to cover in Architecture 2005 and OSD2 when we cover things like system calls. And with that, bada bing, bada boom, we have completed our checklist. Super awesome job collecting all the stars, everyone. All right, and our final things on this diagram, fence up here, eCall right there, and eBreak with the compressed eBreak. And with that, we have learned a ton of assembly instructions, 55 regular instructions, 16 pseudo instructions, and 25 compressed instructions. And while this diagram looks big and potentially intimidating, you have to know that really there are some blobs of things here, right? It's just a bunch of add and subtract variants and some pseudo instructions, which behind the scenes are just adds and subtracts. We've got a whole bunch of loads and stores, and they're just different sizes, loading and storing of double words, words, half words, and bytes. Got a bunch of control flow stuff, be it the branches down here or the jals and calls and rets and things like that. We've got many shifts, more shifts than you can shake a stick at. And we've got Boolean logic, set if less than, and a bunch of miscellaneous stuff here. The fence, the e-call, and the e-break. So when you look at the picture like this, it really isn't that bad, right? You've got adds and subtracts, which everybody knows. You just need to remember what the different forms are in terms of immediates versus registers for the arguments or word size. And yeah, so just in general, it's not too bad. So in this class, we said that we are only going to cover these things, and that was the 32-bit and 64-bit base, and we did cover that. We collected all the stars. We said we're not going to cover all the compressed things, but after you learn how to read the fun manual later on in the class, you can go off and find all the compressed instructions that we didn't cover thus far. And so we're pretty much ready to move on to the M extension for multiply and divide. But again, at the very beginning of the class, I said that everything boils down to these themes: loads and stores, adds and subtracts, ANDs, ORs, XORs, and so forth. And if we break all of those categories up into the actual instructions, we can see there's the loads and the stores. There's the adds and subtracts. There's the binary Boolean operations. We've got the shifts. We've got the salt for set if less than, branches, Jaller and Jal and Louis and WPC. So this is, a lot less intimidating once you realize there's just a couple, permutations. You just need to be able to say, okay, load byte and load byte unsigned, load half word and load half word unsigned, and load D word, and there's no unsigned variant, and so forth. So we definitely learned a lot of stuff, but it all is much simpler once you realize what all is there.